we're going to talk first about a little bit because it is an author evening. So we're going to focus a bit on the process of writing a book as well, and being an author, and how how it happened and how it feels, and takeaways from that journey. Yeah. And we're going to get started with Lulu. Thank you so much for being here today. I have read this book with massive joy, and also find it really well, I guess, aligned with what I'm working with myself. It's called The Genius Wheel. Let's hear from you first. A little bit Aki pasta.
Yeah, yeah. I'm Lulu. Some of you know me in the room. Lulu Minns. I grew up in Brighton, so I'm a born and bred Brightonian. In an independent record shop in Brighton. I spent 11 years working as a criminal defence lawyer after that, so I've had a bit of an eclectic career. And then I left with burnout in 2014, which is relevant to my 7-year personal growth cycle, which is what the book is about. I started coaching and then started coaching women in particular. I've never actually been paid to coach gentlemen. So that's become a real niche of mine. And I really, began to, and I always have done actually, looking at these systemic issues that hold women back as well as the personal ones. And I think that comes through in the book, as well as some of the spiritual ones as well, actually, and the emotional ones, and pulling all of those things together in writing the book. I'm a massive reader. I read about 40 books a year. I always have been. My parents were always, it was not really spending money for buying books. So I definitely carry that through. And it's been, amazing to write a book. There are ups and downs, as Karen knows. I think the fun bit is the first draft, actually, and then getting out and sharing it. And then there can be lots of back and forth and patience that is required in the middle of it.
A fantastic book. Has anyone read it already here? Rose, you read it, and Karen, of course. It's not just it's not a novel. It's actually, it has instructions. It's what would you call it? A work.
Yeah, it's a personal development book, a spiritual development book. As I said, I think that there's a level of, if you're interested systemically on what holds women back, I talk about feminine-based principles as opposed to masculine-based principles. And yeah, it's one of self-reflection. In fact, I've had, some women say, "Oh, I've stopped because I need to do all the exercises," and I'm like, just read it through first, and then go back to it and do the exercises. And as sometimes as women, we can be perfectionists. It's not about getting it all right and answering and doing all of that straight away. I think it's and it's the way I coach as well, is sitting with the question. It's not necessarily about knowing the answer. It's about sitting with it and giving yourself time and space with it, which, as we know, women have less of that. It's a statistic that's not in the book, but 75% of the world's unpaid work is completed by women. That's in the book, Invisible Women. Women can tend to think they're selfish and things like that when they take that time for themselves, whereas it's so important that we do, so we can actually move forward.
Tell us about how it came about, this book. I guess it started with you realizing that your life had been circling in 7-year cycles, and then your coaching as well as this came together. So how did it come about, and at what point did you decide that this is a book?
I had a real urge to write. I wrote an ebook actually 7 years before, so that's significant. But it was about half the size of that, and then I didn't really do that much with it. But I had a real urge to write, and at first I was trying to pull together. I've run a podcast for a number of years, which Karen's been one of the guests, called She Rebel Radio, and I wanted to pull together some of the key messages of that podcast. And it was so big. I wrote a draft that I was like, where am I going with this? I'm not quite sure. And then I started to pull out the key bits, and I'd already put together a course about the 7-year personal growth cycle, which was really resonating with the clients. And then I suddenly had okay. And the name came to me ages ago, as they do sometimes for me. So I had a really clear structure then. And then I had the self-belief issues, the things that, oh, well, no one will really read it. What's the point? You wrote an ebook 7 years ago. You didn't really do anything with it. Clients loved it, but I didn't really get out there and sell it. And then I listened to Virginia Woolf, A Room of One's Own, and there was a few quotes from Virginia Woolf in the Genius Wheel. There is also in Karen's book as well. We've crossed over on a couple of things, and I was listening to that over Christmas, and it really struck me the level of. She's talking about literature in A Room of One's Own, but there's lots written about women, but most of it is written by men. I come from legal practice, as I said. It's a really patriarchal institution that exhausted me at the end of it, and I really used that to allow myself to think that my voice might be important. And if I felt that, then that might inspire other women to feel like their voice is important as well. And certainly when I broke out and started a business, and all the business books were written by men, and even the old school ones like Napoleon Hill and things like that, it says he. And I couldn't find a narrative that I really related to in a deep way. So yeah, I just thought, right, just get on with it and do it and see what happens.
Karen thought she would finish her book in 3 weeks, I think. Or 2 weeks. We'll come back to you on that later. So once you got going and you knew what you were doing, how long did it actually take you?
3 months, waking up at 5 most mornings. That's when my brain is the sharpest. I'm a problem solver first thing in the morning. I'm not in the evenings. And committing just to that 10 or 15 minutes a day. And then it took me as long to read back through it and think, what the hell is this? Because, for those of you that have read it, it's very simple in some ways, but I'm actually explaining something that's quite complex. And that has been missing from the mainstream narrative. So in that way, I really had to then pull it apart. So yeah, but I enjoyed the first draft writing better than the reading back through it.
What do you mean with it being a soul archaeologist? Tell me more about that. And that's reflecting your coaching a bit, I guess.
Yeah, that's from my editor when we were writing the introduction and pulling that together. She was asking me, what's different about you? What's different about how you do things? And it was just something that a client had said to me a number of years before. And when we were talking about genius, actually, because it's something that I've threaded through a lot in my coaching, and I don't have a linear approach to that. But it just stuck with me. I wouldn't call myself that. That's other people, and it's about digging deep to the root of something. And then when you do that, that changes something. For someone on many levels. And in the book, I'm talking about that in terms of that what I'm talking about is the cycle and the cyclical nature of things, which is feminine by nature. And that has been wiped out of the mainstream narrative, which is a huge, huge problem, that we prioritize progress over wisdom. And it is, the feminine, the work of the feminine. We all have masculine and feminine energy, but women and those that identify as women resonate with it and they understand it at a deep level. So even in the book, I'm digging quite deep into that, and I'm writing something at the moment that goes even deeper than that. So yeah.
So it's called the Genius Wheel. So in your words, then, what does genius mean in this context?
It means a coming together of your sacred gifts, and a culmination, a meeting point within us. Again, that we have quite a masculine and patriarchal view of genius. Certain people might come into mind when we say the word, but it's actually, in my view, a meeting point that we all find within ourselves at some point within our lives. And in the book, I talk about it usually happens in our 7th, 8th, and 9th personal growth cycles, which usually for women coincides with the process of menopause as well.
We'll talk to Karen about menopause as well in a moment, perhaps. You're mentioning 3 basic sense of genius. So exceptional intelligence, creative power, and natural ability. Do you feel that covers quite a lot with those? And then you, in the book, guide people to find which one they resonate a bit more with and to explore. Yeah, to find their ultimate power, if you like. Is that right?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I think that that's exploring it at quite a basic level, and then we go deeper with it. But even
This is page 8.
yes, that's page 8. But yeah, even one of my clients said, "Oh, I thought I had creative power, and I was like X, but actually I have a natural ability, and I'm like B. I'm like," and then that's enabled her to show up in her business in a very different way, by leveraging that power. But yeah, it's how that culminates in each 7-year period. And when we look at our lives in 7-year chapters, even at a really basic level, we can get really, really big insights.
There's a little paragraph about this here. Are you happy to read this part? Yeah.
Even if our fundamental needs are met, genius isn't something we can simply work hard to achieve if we lack the inherent spark of talent or interest. Genius is not chosen or earned, it is gifted. It's a birthright inherited through family lines and embedded in the essence of who we are. It represents our potentiality, the ability to become all that we are capable of, but have not yet realized. Our role is to uncover it, and the framework of the 7-year personal growth cycle offers us a pathway to do so.
I'm sorry for massacring your book. This is what happens when you give a book to me that I'm interested in. We've got different examples of different cycles and different shapes and forms. And I encourage you to explore that, obviously, get the book. Um, but you have drawn from the examples you are giving here. It's clearly not just something that you've come up with because you're drawing on examples. But I love that you're drawing both on Hollywood celebrities and through Indian, Chinese medicine, Celtic circles. And it's all reflected. And also the number 7 comes back again and again and again. And I mean, that's when it starts getting really like you start thinking, what is it with that? You know, if it's in so many different cultures, religions, and pathways. And then you start looking at the planets and all the different phases and what they're doing and how they're affecting us. And it's just like, have we forgotten all about what actually matters? Where they knew thousands and thousands of years ago. So, do you feel that that's what you've done a little bit? You've discovered the connections between a lot of these traditional or cultural beliefs.
Yeah, I think it's the interconnection of those things. And also, the number 7 appears in art and religion and nature. We have the 7 wonders of the world, the 7 colors of the rainbow, the 7 seas, the 7 sisters. It appears in a number of interesting ways. And it goes back to that more ancient wisdom. When we're so focused on progress, we're not thinking about cycles that are rinsing, repeating, and kind of, I often say, like, the wisdom of the cycle that can hold things that are far more complex than the linear line ever can. And I think that's important to remember. And the moon cycle is also in there because that's our micro cycle. That's the mini cycle that holds, that so much comes from that, and we don't see that as that important. But it's been making a comeback along with women's, movements being on the rise, which is really interesting because they are interlinked.
You share a lot of very interesting and poignant things about women and the invisible women, and that all been hidden and persecuted and just haven't been allowed to have a voice over all these years. And obviously, that's what we recognize in EyeStorm as well. Is this book just for women? You mentioned before that you're mainly working with women. Does this apply to men as well, or is it just for women?
No, I've said I've had a few men, including my brother-in-law, who said he feels a bit left out. Um, I think Charlie's feeling left out the back. No, no, absolutely not, because we all have masculine and feminine energy. But for women, I think I think we're all missing it across the board. And I talk about that. But for women, it's someone sent me a message on LinkedIn who's read the book in New York and said, "Thanks for validating me." I feel validated by reading this book, and it's not anything that we don't know at a deeper level. But that's true for men as well. I just feel that it's probably 80% of women are open to it and 20% are not, whereas with men it's the other way around. Probably like a small percentage that are open to exploring it. Yeah, and another percentage is not. But no, it's absolutely fair. And my copy editor actually said she wanted to share it with her sons who were on all the time, and not understanding that sometimes we have to step back or contract, and sometimes we're in expansion, and that's what the cycles show us. So yeah, we all need both, and that brings back balance, and that's why the world is so out of balance, because it's something that's not understood.